Hey ladies, check out this episode of the Anatomy of a Woman course, 4 things every woman needs.
I'm really excited about tonight's class, and I hope that you are as well. So we're going to review from last week because the Anatomy of a Woman, I wrote this book because in my life, I was able to identify 4 things that every woman needs. And so last week, we talked about the very first thing, and it's like a building block. So we start with first things first, and everything else is going to build on what we shared or what we talked about last week. And so the 4 things, number 1 was what every woman needs from herself. It's as if as a woman, we have to understand what every woman needs from herself. As a woman, we have to understand that there are some things that we need to give ourselves. It is okay for you to give yourself certain things. And that's what we talked about last week. So the number 1 thing that we need to give ourselves is self-acceptance. Because as we talked about last week, it's very, very difficult to become or be aware of yourself or have self-acceptance until you are aware of yourself. And so we talked a lot about that last week because self-awareness absolutely leads to self-acceptance. Tell me or wave your hand at me if that was a revelation for you all, if you realize that self-awareness was a precursor, if you will, to self-acceptance. Wave your hand, because that's really important to be very self-aware, so that you can get to the point of self-acceptance. And so as we mentioned earlier, when Lana was on talking about your own, unique design and who you are and embracing the beauty of who you are and what you bring to the table. That could be you sew well, that could be you communicate well, that could be you're a great friend, that could be you are a great listener. What are the things that are very good about you that you bring to the table, and being accepting of your own unique design, which also includes our body type and our body frame, which I know a lot of us as women, sometimes we deal with that. But the body that you have is the one God gave you, and so you're gonna make the best of it. Like, we gotta learn what fits our body. Somebody said just because you can wear it doesn't mean that you should, right? And so what looks best on me, and it's all about realizing that when I accept myself, when I understand what I need from myself, and that is self-acceptance, then I bring my best self to the table because I'm confident in that. And so knowing who you are is very, very important. So tonight, we are going to talk about what a woman needs for herself, okay? So last week was what a woman needs from herself. This week is what a woman needs for herself. Now, the word that I'm about to give you, somebody already knows it. Some of you rather already know it because it's the thing, it's the number 2 thing that's already in the book. And this word, if you don't understand what it is, it can come across as a nasty word. Or for some people, it can be a very challenging word. But the word is a good word. So what every woman needs for herself is accountability. Somebody type accountability in the chat. What every woman needs for herself is accountability. And we're going to talk all about accountability tonight. So what is accountability? Accountability is an obligation and your willingness to accept the responsibility for your choices and for your actions. That's what accountability is. I am going to be accountable. I am going to be responsible for my choices, my actions, and the consequences that it brings about. So accountability, this is the part that sometimes we don't like and we have challenges with until we really understand how accountability works to our advantage. Accountability involves making sure that you have to answer to someone. Okay, I'm gonna let that sit with you for just a second. Accountability means you have someone in your life that you answer to. Back in the old days, they used to say you better check yourself before you wreck yourself. So that tells us that you can also be accountable to yourself. But outside of self-accountability, what we need for ourselves is someone in our circle and in our lives that can help us to check ourselves, somebody outside of ourselves that we answer to. So I want you to write this question down. Ask yourself, who do I answer to? Who do I answer to? Who has the right to speak into my life? Because when you're accountable, that means I have somebody else that I answer to. Obviously, if you're a Christian and a believer, obviously you know that one day ultimately you're going to have to answer to God. There's an accountability factor there. I'm talking about another human being, because we do live in a generation and a culture and a time where people believe that they only have to be accountable to themselves and to God. But that's not even biblical, if you will. If you were to go to the Bible, you will find out that that's not even biblical. There's always someone in this earth that you should be accountable to. So I want you to think about that for a moment. Who am I accountable to? Who do I answer to? Who gets to check me? Who gets to challenge me? Who gets to tell me stuff that I do not like or want to hear? Because every last person, not just one woman, every last person needs accountability. So accountability also will keep you honest. It will keep you honest. It will make you own your own successes as well as your own failures. And it will make you and force you to take the appropriate action when you do not do something right. That's what accountability does. So accountability is very, very important. So I want to, now that you understand what accountability is, I want to go towards, why do people fear accountability? Accountability, number one, it has to be taught. But a lot of people do not like accountability. They do not like it. And there are reasons why people do not like accountability. The number one reason is because of fear or judgment or criticism. People don't like to be accountable, because if you get to tell me something, then a lot of times for people, it is a fear of being criticized or a fear of being judged. We get that a lot in our culture today, where we'll see or we'll hear somebody say, don't judge me. Don't judge me. We're very familiar with that. But people don't like accountability because they don't like to feel judged. Now, I want you to understand though, pretty much all of these that I'm going to give on this list about why people don't like accountability, all of them are rooted in personal insecurity. I want you to remember that. People who don't like accountability, for whatever reason it is that they don't like it, it's all rooted in insecurity. That's why we started with what a woman needs from herself, self-acceptance. Because the more I am accepting of myself, the less insecurities I have. The more I am confident in myself, the less insecurities I have. And you will never be accountable if you are insecure. Insecure people cannot be accountable. So you have to be very secure to allow someone in your space to challenge you. Because if you're insecure, you will protect that space because you don't want anybody to tell you anything. Or like I said, you have fear of criticism or fear of judgment. Okay? And so pride or ego is another reason why. Pride and ego is another.
We can't hear you, PT.
The mic is not working. We can't hear you, Pastor Tracy.
Are y'all good now? Can y'all hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for letting us know. Thank you so much. Okay. All right. So I was talking about pride and ego and defensiveness, right? So all of those things, like defensiveness, I want you all to realize it is a derivative of being hurt. or unhealed hurt. So when you're defensive about things, you should realize if I am defensive when people tell me something or challenge me, then what happens is I have to recognize and acknowledge that I am defensive because I have some type of unhealed hurt. And when you have pride and ego and defensiveness, you're not going to allow accountability into your life. But at some point in this teaching tonight, you're going to realize that accountability is for your benefit and for your protection. But this is the process we have to go through because you need accountability for your life because it will help you in life. So again, top two reasons why people don't like accountability. It has to do with ego, pride, or defensiveness. It also has to do with the fear of being judged. All of these things are based in insecurities. Number 3 is sometimes people don't like to deal with their emotions. So people don't like to be accountable because they have not mastered their emotions, or it's easy for them. They don't want to deal with emotion. They want to shut down their emotions. They don't want to act like nothing ever goes on because it's easy. Because how many of you all know, let me know in the chat section, that it is challenging and draining to deal with the emotions. I want to know if y'all agree with me. It's a lot of work to deal with your emotions. And so a lot of times people avoid accountability because it can trigger certain emotions. A lot of people say, yes, indeed. I see you all. Yes, indeed. Absolutely. It will trigger emotions. So it is easier for us just to avoid accountability, avoid any type of interaction that's going to challenge me because I don't know how to deal with my emotions. And it's much easier for me if I just avoid it. But avoidance never brings about a resolve. So the next reason is lack of self-awareness. That's why we started with self-awareness. So a lot of times people don't have accountability because they're not aware of themselves. And again, all of this stuff is based in an insecurity. This is why it's very important. Again, I'm going to reiterate where we started from, what a woman needs from herself. It is because it was really the springboard, the foundation, where when you understand what you need from yourself, it helps you to be confident, it helps you to be secure, it helps you to position yourself for accountability so that you don't have any hangups. Because all of this stuff is rooted in insecurity. So if you're not good with you, then you're not going to be good with anything else. So you got to be a really secure person. That's why we started with working with, let me make sure, and that's not to say that you're never going to be insecure, because really a lot of this is going to give you tips and tools for when insecurities arise. You go back to your self-awareness and understanding who I am, and you don't focus on the insecurities. You focus on, okay, how can I master the thing that's making me feel insecure? It's about having the tools, because as long as you're alive, you're going to be challenged with being insecure. It's what you do in that moment. Do you allow the insecurities to master you, or do you master them? And so it's really important that you understand that secure people are able to handle accountability. That's one of the things you'll learn about yourself, that when I'm a secure person, it's okay for somebody to check me. It's not going to be the end of the world. I'm not going to lose my mind. I'm not going to become emotionally distraught because somebody has challenged me on something. So secure people can handle accountability. The next reason is sometimes people are not accountable because it's learned behavior. What do you mean? What I mean is that it's learned in your house. Think about the people in your circle. Think about how you were raised. Think about your friendships. If I were a betting person, I will wager that every person in here or on this Zoom can identify somebody that you would say, oh, they don't have any accountability whatsoever. I bet if I were a betting person, you would be able to identify somebody, because some lack of accountability is learned behavior. There's nobody that can tell you anything. Like perhaps if you grew up in a household where nobody had accountability, or you're on a job. A lot of people are familiar with that, where supervisors don't have any accountability. People just say and do what they want to the employees because there's a lack of accountability. So sometimes it's learned behavior. Here's another reason why people don't like accountability. Sometimes it's a victim mentality. Like, I want to be a victim so I gain sympathy. That's directly connected to insecurity. I want to be the victim all the time so that I gain sympathy from people, because when I gain sympathy from people, that is the thing that makes me feel good about myself. And if I am that type of person, then I am going to avoid accountability like it's the plague. Because insecure people are people who like to play the victim game. They need it to fill a hole, they need it to fill a gap. And so it's very, very important that you understand that if you fall in that category, I'm helping you to identify. If you fall into any of these categories, that's the part we want you to work on. Because it's going to be very difficult for you to move forward in life to become everything that you have the potential to become if you have a lot of insecurities, you avoid accountability, you're not self-aware. All of these things go together because it all is a confidence builder, so that when you present yourself to the world, you're presenting your best self. Vulnerability and transparency is another reason why people do not like accountability. Because when I'm vulnerable, it shows that I need to depend on somebody else. And a lot of us have this complex, this control complex, where we do not want to appear as if we depend on somebody else, because for us, it is a sign of weakness. If I show that I am dependent on somebody else, then that means, sometimes we think that that means that I am weak, which then further takes it to, well, I'm not going to give anybody the potential or the option to take advantage of me. So people do not like to be vulnerable. They do not like to be transparent, because that is rooted in your need to protect yourself. But then we have to ask another question. Why do you have the need to protect yourself at the cost of not improving yourself? Why do I need to protect myself to the degree that I actually preclude or stop myself from actually becoming a better person? So all of these are reasons why people don't want accountability. And every last one of them, I hope you can see, is rooted in being insecure. I want to go back and I want to talk a little bit about, somebody said, wow, Wanda Johnson said, wow. I want to talk a little bit about this defensiveness. I want you to think about, okay, put yourself in a situation where maybe there was a controversy, maybe there was an argument, maybe somebody checked you, maybe somebody challenged you, maybe somebody, came to you and wanted to have a confrontation with you. I want you to ask yourself, in that moment, what was my response? Did I become defensive? Because if you're defensive every time somebody challenges you, I want you to understand that that is rooted in insecurity. And then I want you to take it a step further and figure out, what is that insecurity? So I'll use an example. Women, you know how we are. Let's say your husband, your fiance, your boyfriend, you walk in the house and they said, you did your hair? It's one or two ways you're going to handle that. Most women, though, when I use this example, they say their immediate response is, what you mean I did that's an insecurity, because immediate defense. They didn't say whether your hair looked good. They didn't say whether your hair looks bad. They just asked the question, did you do your hair, or did you go to the hairdresser? But we heard it from a defensive disposition. And so it wasn't a question. We didn't perceive it rather as a question. We perceived it as an attack and threw up our defenses. So here's the assignment I want you to think about right now. Am I defensive when people challenge me or confront me? What is my reaction when I'm put in a pressure moment? Because if you're defensive, that comes from an insecurity. And you have to figure out what that insecurity is. If you don't like to be transparent, if you don't like to be vulnerable, if you feel like you got to protect yourself, if you keep yourself in this bubble and you don't allow anybody in, you got to go back to, what am I insecure about? Because people who lack accountability, it's either one of these reasons, but it's all rooted in some type of insecurity. I don't want people, because you feel like you have to protect yourself. Like I got to protect myself from everything and everybody. So I want you to think about that, and I want you to do something about it. So I want you to identify what that insecurity is, what that root is, what that hurt, unhealed hurt is. Where does that come from? And then I want you to deal with that, and I want you to tackle that. And if that means you need to get therapy, if you need to go to a mental therapist, if you need to go to a spiritual pastor or a counselor or somebody, you need to do those things, because you got to root that out. Because one thing about insecurities, when you don't deal with them and handle them and attack them, it starts building on top of each other over and over again. You got to deal with it. Let me see what y'all saying. Somebody said, my God, she talking tonight. Yeah, this subject matter I knew was going to be hit home in a real way, because the facts are that every person, every last one of us deals with some type of insecurity. But again, you have to be, let's go back to last week's class, to the very beginning, very self-aware. So this exercise that I'm talking to you about, identifying why you have a challenge with accountability, or how you act in pressure moments and how you respond to challenge. How do I respond to somebody setting up an expectation for me to be better? If you're insecure, it's going to show up. So you got to identify what that thing is, so that you can master that thing, so that it does not hinder you from progressing and moving forward in life. Because if you don't deal with it, pressure moments is going to reveal it. When you're in a pressure moment, it reveals who you really are. Do you all understand what I mean when I say that? When you're in a pressure moment, talk to me in the chat section. I love this. Somebody said therapize us, God. I guess that was therapize, give us therapy, God. So I want to know in the chat if this is really helping you tonight. I really want to know. Yeah. Because it's very, very important that you understand. Somebody said, absolutely, yeah. I want you to be your best. Not only do I want you to be your best, God wants you to be the best. And at the end of the day, here's the thing. Until we deal with our insecurities, we're not going to be able to maximize who we are and present our best selves to our families, on our jobs, in our communities, and present our best selves to the world. Because you got to deal with that insecure stuff on the inside of you, because a pressure moment, like I said, will come. And in that pressure moment, it'll get revealed as to who you really are and how secure you are with regard to yourself. Okay? All right, so let's talk about understanding our own personal accountability. Okay? All right, I'm going to say this 3 words, and I want you to type it in the chat. 3 words, talking about your accountability, personal accountability. Own your stuff. Write it in the chat. Own your stuff. If you're going to progress, secondly, first of all, deal with the insecurities. Secondly, if you're going to progress and become a person who is okay with accountability, you got to own your stuff. We have a habit of deflecting, because when we deflect, that is also rooted in insecurity, because that means that we want everybody to think, when I deflect, I want everybody to think that it's not my fault, that I'm right, that I'm good. The question is, we have to then ask ourselves, why do I need to be right? Why do I feel like it's not okay to make a mistake? So you got to own your stuff. One of the things that I've learned to do is that when I'm speaking to someone, let's say if I have an employee, or if I am leading a group or something, and I have to challenge somebody, and I'll say, hey, I need to talk to you about how you responded in the meeting, or you did not submit. Let's just take something that everybody can identify with. I can call a meeting with an employee or with somebody I'm leading and say, hey, You did not respond. The rule is that you must respond to an email within 24 hours. We had a customer complaint because you did not respond in 24 hours. If you open your mouth and you start telling me every reason why you didn't respond instead of owning that, I know you have a problem with accountability. And I know you're insecure. Because people who understand accountability and people who are secure, they don't make excuses. They're not going to make an excuse as to why and blame everything in the environment as to why the email was not sent. What they will say is, you're absolutely right. I did not send the email. I forgot. I got sidetracked. You can always identify people who have a challenge with accountability because they're going to deflect from owning their own stuff. Just say you didn't send the email. Just say, let that be the first thing out of your mouth. I did not. And then own that. So own your stuff, okay? Secondly, when you own your stuff, that means you're a person of character and integrity. So don't just talk about being a person of character and integrity, be a person of character and integrity. So let's say you are on your way to work, right? But let's say you're on your way to work, but you left your house late. So I left home late. I'm on my way to work. Let's say now the traffic is bad or there's an accident or whatever. When you get to work and you're asked, why were you late? Are you going to be integral and say, because I left home late? Or are you going to blame it on the accident? Because you left home late first. So what we tend to do when we lack integrity, because again, we don't want to own our stuff. Remember, all this stuff tonight is building blocks. I got to own my stuff. But because I don't want to own my stuff, the first thing that I'm going to say is, there was an accident. Our traffic was bad. But why did I not say I left home? Because that forces me to own it. I left home late, then I ran into an accident. Y'all with me? Yeah, I left home late. Own it. Own your stuff. The accident or the bad traffic exacerbated or made it worse. But the truth, being a person of character and integrity, the truth is that you were already late. The traffic or the accident made it worse. Somebody said, I never thought of that perspective. Good. That means I'm doing a good job tonight. That is the perspective I want you to see it from. That is integrity. Be a person of character and integrity. Again, this requires you to be secure in who you are, because you're never going to say and own the fact that you were already late if you're insecure. Because you're going to be worried about everything else but the thing that you should be concerned about. And that example in and of itself is an example of how to be accountable in the right aspect. Because if a supervisor or whomever is asking you why you're late, that means that you're accountable to that person. So what I'm saying is, in your accountability, you have to be integral. Because real, authentic accountability does not work unless you are integral. Like, you can't say you have good accountability and you lie. Accountability requires transparency and truth, okay? So you really want to be accountable, but I'm going to talk to you about in a little bit about how important that is, because accountability has benefits, okay? So don't blame other people for your mistakes. The situations or other things for your mistakes. You got to own them, and then you have to learn from them. And I'm going to say it again because I really want you to hear this tonight. If you are unable to do that, all of this, the root of this, the very root cause of all of this, lack of accountability, lack of being integral, lack of vulnerability, defensiveness, lack of transparency, it is all rooted in being insecure. When you are secure, you know how to own your stuff, and then you deal with the consequences accordingly. You learn from them, and you just know, okay, I'm not gonna do that again, all right? So y'all with me? Let me know in the chat section. Any questions so far? Any questions or comments? I think I want to break right here just for a moment and ask you if you have any questions or comments. Somebody say chisel away. I love that. Chisel away. Any questions or comments? Put them in the chat section. I'd like to, because I need y'all to digest what I'm talking about tonight. I need y'all to digest this because accountability is very important. But it's gonna, I promise you, when we get to the end of tonight's class, you're gonna understand how it's going to benefit you, okay? All right, so y'all good to go. All right, you might say this is rich. All right, so let's talk about some practical steps to accountability, okay? I talked about this one already, and it's at the top of the list because, again, I'm gonna keep repeating it tonight, so I hope you don't get tired of it, because the basis of all of this, the root of all of this, even from last week when we talked about what a woman needs from herself, all of this stuff that we're learning about, if you don't address it, it's all stemming from an insecurity. You have to be very secure. I want to know, before we move on into the practical steps, how many of you want to be your best in life? How many of you want to present your best self? Whether that is being a wife, whether that is being a mother, whether that is being an employee, whether you're called to ministry, you're an entrepreneur, it doesn't matter. If you want to present your best self to the world and you want to excel in life, then I want to know if I'm talking to the right women on here tonight. Because we got to deal with these insecurities. It is so extremely important because most of us don't fulfill our potential as women because we never address the insecurities. And actually, I really want to applaud all of you all for being on here, for downloading the book and really taking the class and really delving into this, because it takes a strong-minded, courageous person to face themselves. You're all on here because either something I said, something I did, something you read in a book, something about me, or somebody who knows me that introduced you to me. There is something about it that said, okay, that you said to yourself, I need to go to the next step in life. And here's the thing about life. We want better in life, but how many of you know and understand that better in life comes as a result of you being a better person? Respond. I want to know if y'all realize that. People want better in life without becoming better themselves. If you want better in life, you have to become better as a person. Let me know how y'all feel about that. Somebody said correct. Woo, woo. I love the woos. If you want better in life, you must become better as a person, which means you have to always, always, always be willing and open to work on yourselves. Because it's not like you work on yourself and you maximize and you're like, woo, I'm good to go. No. Every year, every 6 months, every whatever, I'm always finding ways to improve and work on myself. It's always highlighted. It's just that I've learned to realize that it's not a threat to me, to my person. It is not a detriment to me. Because what I've learned to realize is that if I better myself, then that gives me access to better in life. So it's better for me just to deal with whatever I need to deal with personally about myself, because it's going to give me access to better in life. Okay, so let's talk about some practical steps towards accountability. Again, number one, work on your insecurities. One of the things I want you all to do throughout this course is sit down and ask yourselves first, and be honest with yourself and transparent with yourselves and say, okay, what are my insecurities and why do I have them? What are the root causes of them? Why are they here? Then secondly, I want you to identify an accountability person if you don't already have one, and somebody that you are confident can keep your trust, and somebody that you would value their opinions. And you should ask them, in what ways do you think or feel that I have demonstrated insecurities? Or do you feel I'm an insecure person? See, that's going to put you in a position of being vulnerable and transparent when you ask that. Like, I don't have any friends that I can't be honest with. Because if now you may be an associate if I can't be honest with you and transparent with you, but I don't have any friends, because for me, friend is a covenant term. I don't have any friends that I cannot be transparent with. Because if you are my friend and you do not tell me the truth, then you do not care about me. Facts. Somebody say facts. And I got to be mature enough and willing to own that and be okay with that. Okay. So insecurities is one thing. Here's another step. Commit to your own personal growth. That's what we're talking about. This process of being enrolled in this 4-week class. You're getting tips and tools and information and all of that. Why? Because you are committed to your personal growth. Nobody is on here because they're not committed to their personal growth. That's why I said I applaud you all. Because it takes a lot of courage to do this. To put yourself in a position to say, okay, I need to learn more about myself so I can be better in life. It takes a lot of courage. So commit to your own personal growth, not just for this class, but for the rest of your life. How can I become better? What areas of my attitude do I need to work on? I mean, like if you're married, go to your spouse. Somebody say, oh Lord, here she go, here she go. If you're married, go to your spouse and say, what part of my attitude can I work on? You have children, go to your children and say, what part of my parenting can I work on? What can I do better for you? Now, again, I'm gonna roll it back again. You're not gonna do that if you're insecure. You are not gonna do that if you are insecure. And you gotta be ready for people to tell you the truth. Tell me what I can do better from somebody who you feel safe with, that you're sure loves you, and they're committed to your personal growth and to your success as well. Tell me what I can do better. Because a lot of times we think we have it all going on, and a lot of times we think that we know what we could do better. I'll use a personal example. So for me, when my kids were teenagers and growing up, we had a family meeting. And in the family meeting, the way that we do this in the family meetings, everybody gets to go around the table and share what, we talk about our goals as a family. We talk about goals individually. We talk about, where each person needs help with a goal, or what we can do to support that person's goals or dreams or what have you. And I remember, but also in the family meetings, we also talk about, okay, if the siblings were not getting along, what is the issue? Let's confront the things in the family meetings. And I remember we were going around the table and my kids said to me, Mom, you need to work on not lecturing people. Excuse me? Now, in my mind, I was not that person. In my mind, I was not the person that would lecture every time they did something they should not have done. But I did not realize that their perception and what I was doing was when they did something that they were not supposed to do, I didn't just sit down and say, hey, here's the standard. Here's what was wrong. Here's why you should not do this again. In their mind, what I would do is lecture them for hours. And remind them over and over and over. That was a part of myself that I did not see. It took my children and me being open to that accountability and that transparency. It took me being open for them to challenge me in that. And I learned as a result of that to be a better parent, to the degree that now my grown children, 35 and 32, they will come to me and share anything with me and talk to me, because I had to learn how to communicate correction and wanting them to be better in a different way, in a way that they could receive it. But that wasn't something I came up with on my own. That was them criticizing my parenting skills. Now, how many of us as parents will put ourselves in the position of allowing our children to criticize our parenting skills? When we don't, it is because I'm insecure. That defensiveness, I'm the parent. You don't get to tell me what to do. Why do you feel that way? Why? Why do I feel like my children do not get to say, Mom or Dad, you could have done this differently? Does that minimize me as a parent? No, but that's how we hear it. We feel like our parenting is minimized and we're being brought to the level of our kids, like, how you gonna check me? I'm the mama. You all ever notice that people who have to keep saying over and over, I'm the mother, I'm the woman, I'm the this, I'm that. You're not too sure you that, because if you that sure, you don't have to keep telling everybody. You don't have to keep telling everybody. Somebody said I'm ducking so I don't get hit. Secure people do not have to keep telling somebody over and over and over again who they are. You just move in the world like you know who you are, okay? Number 3, develop an accountability structure, which means to identify people in your life who demonstrate wisdom, integrity, and who also value the same principles that you value for your life. So an accountability structure. Now, I am not advocating that you talk to everybody. Absolutely not. I'm not advocating that you talk to everybody. I'm advocating that you identify someone in your life who can be an accountability person. And it doesn't necessarily have to be somebody like a mentor. It can be someone in your life that you know has your best interest at heart, who is not afraid to tell you the truth, but watch this, will also not judge you and minimize who you are and your value, or make you feel guilty about the areas of your life that you need to improve in. But you can go to them and you can share with them, and they can then share with you. So you have to identify, and I will highly recommend that you pray about who that person is, because that person needs to be a person of character and integrity, which A means they're not going to tell your business to anybody. Not their spouse, not their children, not their best friend, not your mama, not your children. Someone, a good accountability partner is someone who will have the impeccable character and integrity to the degree that whatever it is they challenge you on or you share with them, it does not leave their lips. That's a good accountability partner. Character, integrity, somebody who's wise, but yet you can share your flaws, your faults with them, and then they can challenge you on the things you need to be challenged on, but you don't have, there's no judgment in it. Meaning, then they're going to continue to walk with you through life just the same. They're not going to switch on you because they found out some information about you. How many of you have ever dealt with people that you thought, maybe you didn't call it accountability, but you thought it was the person, it was your person? Because I think we don't often use the word accountability, but a lot of times it's still accountability. Have you ever dealt with someone that you thought was your person, but they weren't, because they switched on you? Maybe they didn't tell your business, but they switched on you when they found out something about you. Yeah, most of us have, because a lot of times accountability is a trial and error process. That's why I said pray about it. It needs to be somebody who understands your core values. It needs to be somebody who lives by the same principles that you live by. It needs to, again, be somebody who has integrity and character. Very, very important. And they won't judge you. They won't throw you away. They won't make you feel guilty. And they'll keep your confidence. That is what I mean when I say build an accountability structure, okay? Once you build your accountability structure, accountability means you need to have regular check-ins with the people. That means y'all can set it up once a month, once, whatever you all need, whatever works for your schedules. But just a check-in. It don't even have to be structured. It could just be, this is my check-in person. What's going on? That person can check in on you. What's going on? But again, if we want accountability to work to our advantage, we got to be transparent and we got to be honest. So that means that if you're going through something and you're being challenged, then that accountability person is the person that you would call and say, hey, you should have accountability. If you're married, you should have accountability, an accountability couple for your marriage, where there's somebody that if he or if you, or she, women on here tonight, if she isn't acting right, there ought to be some other wife and husband that you and your spouse have identified as your accountability people for marriage. And they, if you're not acting right, your husband could call them and say, this is what she doing. And then they call you and you pick up the phone and you listen and don't say nothing. I want to know how y'all feel about that. Y'all got those kind of accountability partners? Yeah, because it's for, can you see how that's a protection for your marriage and for your relationship? You need to have accountability people. Well, you need it personally as well. You need an accountability person. So identify who that is, okay? And when you talk to your accountability person, you want to give feedback. You want to ask them. And then listen, if you are not ready, going back to that same word, insecure, if you are not ready for people to be honest with you, you're not ready for people to be honest with you if you are insecure. You got to get your security down. I remember when I first started speaking publicly. I believe it was my husband, probably maybe 20, 25 years ago, when I first started speaking publicly, he said to me, you need to slow down. You talk too fast. But because I know that he was doing it for my benefit and for my good, and I wasn't insecure, I didn't like the way it felt. I'm not saying you're going to like the way it feels. Because I had just come off the stage from speaking, and that's when I asked him for feedback, he said, you need to slow down. You're talking too fast. You're going to lose people. Now, in a moment where I just came off of the stage speaking to people, how do you think that made me feel? It made me feel like I had to second guess myself, question myself. Was it that bad? All of that stuff went through my mind. But I had to process all of that and realize what he's telling me is for my own benefit and good. And so I had to learn to be okay with that. And it actually helped me to become a better speaker to the degree that we put a system in place where he would have a signal, because he would sit on the front row wherever I was speaking, and he would have a signal. And if he wanted me to slow down, he would just slightly lift his hand, nobody looking, and he would do like this. Until I trained myself to slow down. But he was my accountability person. Nobody knew our signals. He would just do like this on the front row. And it taught me to slow down, and it made me a better, more impactful speaker. So your accountability partner, they're there to help you to become better, to keep you safe. Self-reflection, be okay with this. Terry said, self-reflection, be okay with it and move forward. Absolutely, 100% agree, okay? So you ask for feedback. Then the other part of this is you learn to receive correction, but with humility. Because some of us receive correction, but we receive it with venom and response. Receive correction with humility. Humility is not a sign of weakness. Humility is a sign of strength. Because literally what humility means is that I am able to harness my power. Because if I don't like what you say, I have the power to respond back in not such a good way. But when I am humble and I understand what humility is, I harness my emotions. I harness my power, meaning I maintain control. So give feedback and receive correction with humility. It is very, very important to receive correction. Ask yourself, just like I told you to ask yourself about if you're defensive, ask yourself, when you are being corrected at work, again, if you're married and you have a spouse, or even if you have a parent that's still, because how many of y'all are here parents, your kids may be grown, you still correct them. I know I'm 58 years old, my aunt, who is like my mother, she's still correcting me. So you're going to be corrected, okay? You're going to get corrected, right? How are you receiving correction? I want you to ask yourself that. What does it look like when you are challenged? To you, what do you look like to you when you are being challenged? How are you receiving that? If your child says something to you, how are you receiving that? How are you viewing that? Because you got to receive correction, but you have to do it with humility. So there are some benefits that I want to talk to you about of personal accountability. Here's some benefits, okay? Obvious one is personal growth. I saw a lot of you put that in the chat. Personal growth. When you are accountable, it teaches you to have power over your emotions, over yourself. It teaches you the process of self-improvement. It teaches you to have control over your life and your choices. Why? Because I'm answering to somebody else. When you answer to somebody else, you have more restraint. If you have no accountability, then you have zero restraint. So if you're on your job, let's say as a school teacher, the kids can cut up, but you're not going to cut up right back with the kids as a school teacher because you already know I have to be accountable to an entire system and parents. And rightfully so, I was a school teacher, so rightfully so, kids can make you want to sometimes just lose it. But what will harness you from losing it is the fact that you got to be accountable to parents, administrators, school board, the law. So what it does is it restrains you. My point is that accountability helps you to restrain and harness your emotions because you know I got to answer to somebody else for this choice and for what I'm doing. Okay, so personal growth is very important. Here's benefit number 2. You acquire the respect of others when you're accountable. Other people will begin to respect you because they know that you're not a renegade. They know that you have parameters. They know that you are operating within a certain set of standards and parameters, and you're going to answer to someone else. That's very, very important. People, just think about your own self. You trust people more when you know that they have an accountability factor somewhere. Okay, so for instance, if you have a medical need and you go to the doctor, are you really going to go to a doctor who is not certified by the Board of Health or the American Medical American Medical Association? Are you going? Let me know if you're going to go to that doctor. Let me know if you're going to that office. You're not going. You're not going because you know that there is no accountability. So if something goes wrong, there's nobody that they have to answer to. So make that personal now. Okay? People will gain, you will gain the respect of others when people know you are accountable to someone other than yourself, because they know that you are now having standards and living within parameters. All right? When you're accountable and you're checking your behavior, your actions, here's benefit number 3, against other people, it helps you to become a better decision maker. And the reason why you're going to become a better decision maker is because you're going to think about that consequence of your choice. When my kids were younger, I would tell them, before you make a choice, I want you to go all the way to the end of the decision. And I want you to get a view of what is the consequence, good or bad, positive or negative. What is the view? Go all the way to the end of your decision. And what is the view at the end of that decision? What is the consequence? So what accountability will teach you to do is, before you just start doing anything, you're going to go all the way to the end of that decision. Because you know at the end of the decision, you have allowed somebody in your life that's going to say, was that the decision you were supposed to make? So it helps you to process and make better decisions, because now you know this decision and whatever the consequence of it is, I have to answer to somebody else about it. So it helps you make better decisions. Okay. Number 4, better mental health. The number 1 reason why it's better mental health is because you have somebody that helps you process, that's helping you process through things, through challenges. You're not taking all of this on by yourself. Internalizing it. You know, a lot of times people, and I don't know if there are any therapists on here tonight, but a lot of times people get into mental health issues because they internalize everything. They don't have any outlet to go through, or they don't choose an outlet to go to so that they can process things through their system. Emotionally, accountability helps you. Okay, mentally, accountability helps you because you have somebody else there walking with you through something to help you get to the proper decision, the proper answer. So emotionally and mentally, it is a benefit to you. Accountability helps you become a strong leader. Again, it's the same thing. It's going back to the same thing. You become a strong leader because you have somebody else to answer to. You have somebody else that is speaking into your life. You have somebody else who's helping you to become better. So that's very important. And then ultimately, all of these, your personal growth, having the respect of others, becoming a better decision maker, having better mental health, and becoming a better leader and developing strong leadership characteristics, because you're never going to be a strong leader if you don't know how to take criticism. If you read any book on leadership, it will tell you that great leaders are open and they have like a panel of people around them who criticize them and they're okay with it. If you read any book on great leaders and they keep people around them that challenge them to be better, which is how they become great. And greatness is relative, because I don't want you to equate greatness with fame or equate greatness with having a lot of money, because that's not what greatness is. Greatness has to do with how successful you are in your vein and how much impact you're making in whatever area that you're working in, or whatever your purpose is, or whatever you're committed to do. So I don't want you to minimize greatness just to an amount of money or how many people know your name, because that's not what true greatness is. Okay. But if you study the lives of great people, great leaders, they all keep a circle of people around them, literally, who are better than them. They keep people around them, rich people, for instance, wealthy people, keep people around them that have more money than them. The reason why they keep people around them that have more money than them is because they want those people to take them to the next level. So they keep people around them who would challenge them. And accountability, if you want to be great in life, you got to keep people around you who would challenge you to go to the next level. All of these things, when you add them up, they lead to fulfillment in life. They lead to your life being fulfilled. You'll be much happier. You'll be more fulfilled in life. Why? Because you're processing things better. You're becoming better. And when you know that you are becoming better, you feel better. When you have mastered your emotions, when you have mastered your insecurity, when you have developed tools that help you to master these things, you are more fulfilled in life. And the more fulfillment you have in life, the more joy you have in life, the more peace you have in life, the more comfort you have, the more you experience life, the more you enjoy life. So you got to put an accountability structure in place. In my closing notes, I want to read this statement to you that I wrote today, because it's very, very important that you get this. I wrote down, pay attention to how you respond if someone is challenging or questioning you and you become defensive, you get upset, or you deflect. That means that you'll never be able to become accountable to anyone else. If you're defensive, you get upset, or you deflect. That means there's a root cause, there's an insecurity issue that you have, and you have to deal with that and master that and overcome that. It's either attached to hurt, it's attached to unforgiveness, it's attached to something, and it'll keep you from becoming accountable. And if you're not accountable, it's like you're going through life like a renegade without any parameters, without anybody to check you, without anybody to speak into your life, without anybody to help you to do better in life. Because even the world knows that people are better together. Because even in the world, people look at people who we would define as hermits, or people who go off somewhere and live somewhere by themselves, away off the grid, don't want to deal with people. Even the world looks at that and is like, okay, there's something wrong with that picture. What made that person do that? Something happened in that person's life to make them move away from everything and everybody. We don't even see that as normal. We can see that physically, but when you close yourself off emotionally and mentally to people, it is literally the same thing. You're not giving anybody access to you. And now you're forced to do life by yourself and alone, and there's no way you're going to become better. So watch that deflection, Watch getting how upset you get when someone challenges you, okay? And deal with those things. And then finally, I said this before, but I'm going to say it again. Identify and work on your insecurities. Work on those insecurities, because none of what we're talking about is going to work unless you deal with and master, identify, deal with, and master the insecurities, okay? And then I want you to remember this statement as well. A person without accountability is a dangerous person. A person without accountability is a dangerous person. They are dangerous to themselves. They are dangerous to their family. They are dangerous to their community. They are dangerous to the people in their lives. They're dangerous. So you want to be an accountable person. It's hard for us sometimes to see that personally, but if we just think about it, we have laws in this land because people need to be accountable. We have police officers because people need to be accountable for their behaviors and their choices. You and I would not live in a land that had no accountability. There was no law. There was no structure. There was nobody to check and abide. A lot of the challenges that we're having today, in without getting to political stuff, but a lot of issues that people bring up today is because there seems to be a lack of accountability that when with regard to political things and other things that are going on in our country right now. The root problem that people have is seemingly certain people have no accountability. We don't trust systems and people when we cannot identify accountability. So when you bring that home personally, how do you have confidence in yourself? Or how do you have people to have confidence in you if you lack accountability and refuse accountability? So what every woman needs for herself, for her own benefit, for her own progression in life, for her own advantages in life, what every woman needs is accountability.
I hope you've gotten everything you need from this episode. Thanks for watching, ladies.